Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Russell Treasure, and I'm a mindfulness teacher in the northwest of England. I teach to schools and prisons. I even teach the local rugby club, Warrington Wolves, and I work for their charity, the Warrington Wolves Foundation, too. I do a lot of mindfulness training now for local companies and local authorities. This is my life. I don't call it work. I don't work at the moment. I just do what I enjoy, which is helping people to learn a bit more about mindfulness and maybe help them to still their minds and stop the constant worrying about the past and the future. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I really got into this mindfulness stuff. I had a very big life change in about 2008, 2009, and I needed some help from somewhere. And it was great that I found a class, and I started attending the class, and I realised that whilst my mind was constantly thinking and worrying about the past and projecting into the future and worrying about that too, I could actually stop that and have the ability to have a little bit of peace of mind, even if it's just for a few seconds or a few minutes. And then with a bit of practice, eventually you can, within a few weeks, you can have as long as you like. You can do half an hour or an hour. And of course, then the next stage would be to promote this to everyday life, everyday activities. And when we come across a situation, this is probably the best example where mindfulness comes in. When we come to a situation that we would have labelled good or bad, we can step back from our mind's reaction. So we have an occurrence, we put a space between the occurrence and our mind's reaction to it, which will be an emotional outcome, and then we can maybe make a different decision, or we can have a different outcome because we're making that decision, or we're expressing an emotion that is different than the one that would have just come straight out. And this is completely normal. Humanity's been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years, and we can pin it down to many millennia ago, when we were actually prey. We were pursued, and we developed a fight or flight mode, which most of you will probably have heard of. And that fight or flight mode basically saved our lives. And back then, it may have been a rustle in a bush, or a smell, a sound, and it activated this part of our brain that makes us either run away or stop and fight. And that was great. Back in those days, it did allow us to survive as a species. Now, what's happened is that part of our brain has actually been brought forward throughout the generations. It's in our genes, and we still have it. The difference now, of course, is that we don't get preyed upon by wild animals, but we do have situations happen in life, and it could be something as simple as a traffic jam. And we're sat in our car, we're going to be late for an appointment or for work, and our brain goes into fight or flight mode. It's worried, and this part of the brain is described in a great book called The Chimp Paradox by Professor Stevens, and I would encourage you to read that if you can. And what happens is the chimp, and we give it a name. Mine's called Charlie. The chimp says, because we're running late, there is a chain of events that might happen which leads to our death, and it's exactly the same as if we're being predated. And it basically says, well, I'm running late, I might lose my job, I won't have any money coming in, I won't be able to pay my bills or buy food, so I'll die. And that's what we've got, and you can't get rid of that. So what do we do in mindfulness? Well, we train our chin. We tell it everything's going to be okay. We say, it's okay, you don't need to worry. And the chimp then, once we've trained him or her, it can be male or female in both genders, then pops back in, and we can carry on a normal life without being in flight or fight mode. So in mindfulness, what we do is we try and distract the mind. It's in two stages really. One is the practice of being mindful as often as possible, and the other is using mindfulness at any given time where you feel that you might need it, where you've got a situation, an occurrence has come up. And when we label an occurrence good or bad, or a situation, then that's when we get the emotional outcome. And it's all in our minds. Our minds actually create good or bad. The situation might be okay. And what I'm going to show you today is a way to try and train yourself to say more often, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. I don't need to worry. I don't need to prepare my mind and body for fight or flight. So leading on from that, I'm going to go through 3 stages, which is part of there are many modules, many subjects around mindfulness which we can use, and I'll probably cover in a future version of this. But I think the main one to learn is stilling the mind and body. And the third one is sleep. A lot of people who I talk to certainly struggle to get to sleep because their minds are constantly going over and over and over. And because our minds are thinking about things, we don't create the right situation to fall asleep. So at the end of my little mini session, I'm going to hopefully show you how to get to sleep at nights as well. And it does go in these 3 definite stages. To my mind, first of all, we have to relax the physical body so that our muscles aren't tense, and asking the heart to pump blood around, and therefore causing faster breathing. The second part is to still the mind, and to do that we need to trick the mind. Essentially, we need to give it 2 things to do. So I'm going to go through that. And then thirdly, once those 2 states have been achieved, we can easily fall asleep by, again, giving the mind another task to do, rather than just sitting there thinking about things. Now, the benefits of this are many-fold. You can look at the numerous studies on the internet through various universities, various scientific studies, and have a read. But just to give you a few, obviously lower blood pressure is one. The resilience, mental resilience, if you practice mindfulness, and I'm going to ask you if you can try and practice this nearly every day if possible, even if it's just for a few minutes. Building up a mental resilience, being more relaxed in company. And one really important one, I feel, is reacting to maybe what somebody's said or done. And I know certainly speaking to a lot of people that when something happens where somebody just says something that you don't like, your reaction might be very defensive. You may go on the defense, or you may attack, you may say something back which you may later regret. So we're teaching you to just be still, maybe just take a breath before you react to a situation. Many other benefits, increased an improved relationship with your family and friends, at work. People out there may have money issues, health, work, relationship. There are many things which mindfulness can help with. And if you apply mindfulness to your life, just like brushing your teeth really, I do it every day. I would say first thing in the morning before I get out of bed, I'll just lie there and I'll practice. And then during the day, I'm going to give you a few tips to help you when something comes up suddenly that you weren't expecting, and you haven't got time to kind of close your eyes and breathe and take a 5 minutes out. You just need an instant reaction. And then obviously going back to the sleep, I think sleep is a really big one. And if we lose sleep, if we're not getting our 7-8 hours sleep a night, then that has a big knock-on effect actually. So the sleep is a big one. Other things that mindfulness can be useful for are pain relief. That's a great one, turning the pain down effectively using the mind. I personally use it for tinnitus, and I've had tinnitus for a number of years, and I can use mindfulness to turn down the volume of tinnitus, which is another great one. So I'm just going to go through a couple of nice, easy tasks which you can do if you feel tense. The first one, which is a great one, is we clamp our jaw. We tend to clamp our jaw, and it's going back to the fight or flight mode. We tense everything up. And the reason we clamp our jaw is because if we get struck, it causes less damage. So a lot of people don't realize it, but they're clamping the jaw like this. Now, a great way to relieve all that tension, and of course this can cause muscle tension headaches. A great way of relieving that is to touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth. If you can, just at the top behind the front teeth. And if you do that, you'll find that you release all the tension in the jaw there. Another great one I find is if you see people, and I'm trying to do it now, you see people with their shoulders like this. If I see somebody coming into my practice with the shoulders up, I know that they're hunching over, they're expecting something bad to happen. And again, the fight or flight response is we hunch our shoulders and duck down to receive a blow. Or if it's cold, you'll be out there and you may find it's raining and cold, you'll hunch your shoulders up to protect yourself. So a great way, when you realize that you're doing this, and now that I've told you about it, you may realize that you're doing it, is to lift your shoulders all the way up to your ears just for a couple of seconds. And then on an out breath, drop them down. Now, the shoulders now are at the normal anatomical position. They're relaxed, I'm not holding any tension. And therefore, I'm not transferring that tension up into my neck and into the back of my head and up through into here. You can even, as you drop your shoulders in your mind, you can just say, whatever. And that's a great way of training the brain to say, no, everything's fine. There's nothing to worry about, and it's going to be okay. And everything's fine, or everything is going to be fine. It's one of my favorite mantras. We can train ourselves to say, listen, it's just a small thing. It's fine, it's okay. We're constantly, if we keep saying that, we're actually training ourselves to feel okay, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas at the moment, for most people, their minds are racing all the time. They're worrying about what's going to happen. They may regret something that has happened, and they're playing back that scenario in the mind all the time. So, whatever. And I'm touching my tongue to the roof of my mouth, and now I've got complete relaxation from my shoulders up, which is fantastic. And the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is just take a really deep breath 3 times. And each time you breathe out, just allow your shoulders to drop down and actually listen to the sound of your breath. And each time you breathe out, don't forget to drop the shoulders down. And that's something you can just do any time of day. Nobody will know you're doing it. But what you're doing is you're giving yourself that little mental break. You're getting some air into the lungs, and allowing the top of the body, the shoulders, the neck, the jaw, just to relax down. I do that quite a lot, if necessary. Even if not necessary, it's a great little exercise just to breathe. Just get used to the sound of your breath. Get used to the feeling of your stomach inflating and deflating as you breathe in and out. And that leads me nicely onto breathing, because one of the things that we don't do if we are in, let's say, a panic situation or a stressful situation, we breathe into the chest like this. And again, it's the body's response to the stress. Put your hand on your stomach, and as you breathe in, actually feel the stomach rise and fall. And try and get used to that. Train yourself to breathe into the stomach. It's a fantastic way of just relieving any stress. Now, I see that a couple of little comments have come on the bottom of the screen there, and please feel free, if you wish, to ask questions during the talk. I'm going to be coming on to an actual full mindfulness meditation session. Now, meditation, for me, it's not attached to any religion or spirituality, but that's fine, because some religions and people who are spiritual do use this a lot. But the way I teach it, it's just a function of the mind and body that can help anybody and everybody. And meditation is it's just one part of mindfulness. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of other things that you can do. But for the purposes of today, just for this hour, we're just going to concentrate on mindfulness meditation. So let's get into it, because I'd like to leave a bit of time at the end if anybody wants to ask any questions and to maybe give feedback on how you feel. So first of all, sit up in your chair and place your feet flat on the floor but not crossed. Next, just place your hands nice and gently on the tops of your legs on your lap. And now sit up straight, but you don't have to sit up rigid. Just let your back rest lightly against the chair. This is if you'd like to do this sat down. Now in the mornings, I do this in bed before I get up. So what you would do is you would just lie down on your back, hands resting lightly on the mattress and legs uncrossed. And it's great to do this led down. Obviously, if you're going to try the sleep thing, then it does work better if you're in your own bed and you're led down. But you may find towards the end of this exercise that you do feel like you may go into the sleep mode. You may not fall asleep properly right now, but you'll feel like if you were led in your own bed, you could fall asleep. So we're sat down nice and comfortably, our hands resting on our laps, feet flat on the floor. Try to resist the urge to maybe twiddle with your hands and fingers. Try and leave them just nice and flat on the floor. And the first thing we're going to do is take a nice deep breath. Lift the shoulders up. Drop them down on an exhale. Now the first part for me of any meditation is to work through the physical body. Let's teach the body to be relaxed first, because we're not going to relax and we're not going to be able to turn the mind off unless we are actually relaxed in the physical body. And I see somebody's commented there about tension in the shoulders. Well, when we work through this exercise, you will find that the upper body, and particularly shoulders, neck and head, and particularly around the face as well, will be very relaxed. So thank you for that comment. But if you ever feel like you've got tension in the shoulders, drop them up, all the way up, and then drop them all the way down again, because we want the body to learn that this is how it should be. Our shoulders should be down here, not up here. And the more we teach our bodies to be like this, it remembers then. It remembers that this is how it should be. And we've trained ourselves over years and decades to be in fight or flight mode, particularly if we've had a lot of things going on, you know, as I said earlier, regarding it might be health or money or job or a relationship, or it could be anything. We train ourselves to be like this. So let's get ourselves to be like this. You might find that my voice now, because I've opened up the upper body, my voice can become a little softer. And my breathing, and you should feel this too, my breathing may have slowed down naturally. Don't try and slow the breath down. Just allow it to naturally slow down, because we're just sat here. We have nothing else to do. We don't have to be anywhere. or speak to anybody. We can just sit here, and the breathing naturally slows down because we don't ask our muscles to do anything. Sat in this position, we should have no tension. You may have some tension at the moment, and we're going to sort that out right now. So starting at the bottom of your feet, feel where your feet are touching the floor. Now put some tension into your feet by and then on an out breath, just release the tension. As we work our way up the body, we're going to actually go back and start again, because as we work up, sometimes tension can creep back in to the lower parts. So now, using your mind's eye, if you like, locate your calf muscles and try and put some tension into the calves. And an out breath, relax them. Just have a moment's silence in between each little exercise. So now, just check back down to the feet and check the calves again. This is actually starting to occupy the mind with what we're doing right now in this present moment, in the now. Because the present moment is all there is. There's never any tomorrow or yesterday. We're always in the now. Now find your quad muscles, those big muscles in the upper legs. This is a big fight or flight muscle. Put some tension into those quads. You may find that by doing that, you reintroduce tension further down, and that's okay. On an out breath, just release that tension. Leaving a small gap. Let's now just go back to the feet, the calves, and the quads. Any tension that may have crept back in, let that go. And now the glute muscles, the ones in your bottom, the ones that are propping you up on the chair. I always get a few giggles about that. Put some tension into them and physically feel yourself rise up in the chair. Then on the out breath, did you see my shoulders there? As I did the tension in the glutes, my shoulders came up. So as I breathe out, I release the tension in my shoulders again. Just have a moment of silence as you just listen to the breath and you feel your stomach rise and fall. Now let's check back. Go down to the feet, calves, the quads, and the glutes. Release any tension. And now you'll find that your entire lower body is relaxed. We've taught it, but it doesn't need to be tense. It's fine, because we don't have to do anything as we sit here. Notice your breathing. And feel the stomach rise and fall as you breathe in and out. Now, one thing you may find is that as we relax all the muscles and the body goes into this extreme relaxation, you may feel maybe some warmth or tingling, and that's absolutely natural. So just allow that to happen. That's a sign that we've relaxed properly. As you do this practice over the weeks and months, you'll be able to do all of this at once. You won't have to work up. But at the moment, we're just teaching the body bit by bit, just small steps, get everything relaxed. And now that our bottom half is relaxed, let's just focus on the stomach. As it expands on the inhale and contracts on the exhale. Think about what's happening as you breathe in. The air is entering your body through the nose. And just follow the movement of your stomach. Feel every millimetre of movement as you breathe in and out. And you'll notice that the chest is also expanding as you breathe in. Follow that for a few breaths. You may find as you do this that you can close your eyes, and that's fine. But if you wish to keep them open, that's okay too. Let's give those shoulders one more lift up to the ears, and then the out breath, drop them down. And you may be able to check the entire lower body all at once now. Release any tension that may have crept back in. Now get those hands and squeeze them into tight fists. You'll notice that the tension will go all the way up the arms into the shoulders. And on the out breath, just relax them down again. Just have a moment in between each one. Listen to the breath and get used to the sound. If you can, best to breathe in and out of the nose to create the sound that we're going to use later. If you can't, use the mouth, but just be aware if you breathe in through the mouth, you may get a slight tickle. Now let's move up to the jaw. Has that jaw clamped together again? If it has, just release it. But try and keep a tiny bit of contact with the lips. So the teeth aren't touching, but the lips are. And if you struggle to remember to unclamp the jaw again, as I said earlier, just touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and that will keep the jaw, the upper and the lower jaws separate. Now, one of the important ones, alongside the shoulders, around the eyes. Keep listening to your breath in the background. Now, if you want, screw your eyes up. Screw them up tight, and then just release all that tension. What we find is there's a lot of tension around under the eyes, around and across the brows. You may see people who are permanently furrowing their brows. Try and get rid of all that tension. I've seen it knock 5 or 10 years off some people, just by getting rid of all that tension in the face. Forehead. Let it go. And the scalp. If you can somehow get some tension into your scalp, takes a bit of practice, this one. And then release it. And you'll find that the temples will go nice and soft. So now let's just do one more quick scan of the body. Let's make sure all the muscles are nice and relaxed. Feet, calves, quads, glutes. Feel the stomach rise up and down, and the chest. How the shoulders drop. See that minor D even raised up a little bit there. Got those shoulders back down. Hands and arms. It almost feels as if your hands are floating on your legs. Still touching, but not pressing down. And then just check the jaw and the face again. I sometimes find that I get a little nice smile on my face when I've got rid of all that tension, and that's great. Try and fit in that couple of breaths in between each time you check something. So now the whole body's relaxed. This is how we want it to be as often as possible, unless we need to do something. If we need to run out of the house or go up the stairs or whatever, But in those in-between times when you just sat down or laid down, let's train the body to be soft. Naturally then, the heart rate drops down and blood pressure. So we've done the body, and we'll keep checking back. But now let's concentrate on the mind. Let's trick the mind into stopping that worrying about the past and the future. Let's be in the present moment. And to do this, it's very simple, but not easy. You'll have heard that before. But with practice, it is very doable. And I hope you will get an experience of that right now. Remember, if your mind keeps trying to jump back in, it's had a lot of practice, forgive it. Don't beat yourself up about it. The mind's been trying to run your life ever since you were maybe 4 or 5 years old. And it will try and jump back in, but we can stop it. So first of all, I'd like you to notice, and you may have never noticed this before, I'd like you to notice that when you breathe in, the temperature of the air is cool. And when you breathe out, it's warm. Now just notice that for a few breaths. At the same time, all the while, in the background, you can feel the stomach rise and fall. For this part of the session, you may find by closing your eyes that it's easier. Because I want you now to start listening to the sound of your breath. And what we're trying to do is we're going to try and give the mind 2 things or more to do. And if we do that, it can't possibly think. So, feel the temperature as you breathe in and out. Listen to the sound of the air. And feel the stomach rise and fall. Try and do all 3 at once. If you do get distracted, maybe by a thought or a sound, try and treat that like a train that doesn't stop at the station of your mind. It goes straight through. So the thought comes in and goes straight back out. As soon as you have that realization, start listening to the breath again, because it just means you've forgotten. When you have that realization and you listen to the breath again, it will become easier and easier. Feel the stomach rise and fall again. Feel the temperature of the air as it enters and leaves your body through the nose. If you hear a sound, you can't not hear it, but don't listen to it. Don't let your mind get hold of it and give it a name or a label. And as soon as you have that realization again, listen to the sound of the breath. Feel the stomach rise and fall. You might want to just go back and check that your body's still nice and relaxed. And as you do that, you're practicing being able to do that and listen to the sound of the breath and feeling the stomach all at once. If you haven't closed your eyes by now, just try it. Try doing this with the eyes closed. It just cuts out another sense of sight. So your brain is getting less input. And now it's maybe just feel and touch and sound. And you may have noticed that your breath has slowed down now. And I'd just like you to focus on the in-breath. See if you can slow the in-breath down a little. So we're taking in the same amount of air, just taking it in more slowly. And notice the different rate that the stomach rises and falls. Now focus on the out-breath. Has that slowed down? Has it become easier? Just allow that out-breath to stretch out a little bit. All the while though, keep noticing the sound and the movement. So notice the effects that breathing has on your body. Again, something you may not have been aware of, but notice now there's a slight gap after the in-breath. There's a slight pause before you breathe out. Now notice there's a slightly longer pause at the end of the out-breath. So before you breathe back in, the body rests. And in that space, in that gap, there's no movement, no sound, no thought, because your body is completely focused on the next breath. Let's see if we can stretch that gap out. So at the end of the next out breath, just maybe wait a second or two before you breathe back in. And again, with practice, we can stretch that gap out. Maybe you can wait 3, 4, 5 seconds. It's important not to struggle though. Always listening to the sound, always feeling the movement. Try and sit in that gap. It's a space at the end of the out breath. And notice that your body and mind are completely still. Now the practice is to try and stretch out that space, that gap at the end of the out breath. But don't try too hard right now. Just maybe practice that one in future. And if your mind again keeps trying to jump in, as soon as you realize you've started thinking, start listening to the breath, start feeling the temperature, and feel the movement of your breath as you breathe in and out. Now I would like you to feel the touch of the feet on the floor. As you breathe in, and relax the body again as you breathe out. Let's just get rid of any tension that may have crept back in. Now put your mind into the touch of your hands as they rest on your lap. As you breathe in, focus on the hands, and as you breathe out, allow the body to relax a little bit more. Now think about the feet and the hands at the same time. On the next in-breath now, think about the touch of your lips, where your lips are resting together. Find the signal that your lips are sending to your mind to say that they're touching. Now try and connect all three, the feet, the hands and the lips. And again, just notice whether your breathing slowed down. Now our minds and bodies should be soft. We should be able to take a few seconds of breathing without any thoughts entering our heads. And again, we're always conscious of the sound, the breath, of the movement of the body. And I'd like you now, with your eyes closed, to start counting back from 200. But follow me. I'll start the counting and then allow my voice to trail off. 200. 199. 198. Keep listening to the breath, but don't try and time your counting with the breathing. 197. 196. 195. 194. 193. 192. 191. 190. Continue to count down. 189. Keep listening to your breath. 188. 187. 186. 185. If you lose count, just start again anywhere. The number's irrelevant. 184. Keep listening to the breath. 183. Keep feeling the movement. 182. And continue to count down. 181. As you count down, you may find yourself feeling that you may be able to fall asleep where you're in your own bed at night. And indeed, just sat here, it might happen. So that was just a little exercise to give you an idea about how to get to sleep. If you wake up in the middle of the night or you have trouble dropping off, always start off with a physical body relaxation. Then still the mind by listening to the breath and feeling the breath. And then start counting back from 200 slowly. But keep listening to the breath all the time. And you should find that it's fairly impossible to get down to 0. So, well, I don't know if you're aware, for those of you who are joining in with that, but from the time we started with the body relaxation, that was about half an hour. And most people, if they have managed to still their minds, say, well, I thought that was maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most. And the reason for that is because you stopped your mind from thinking. We all have an internal clock, which we can more or less, oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment. That would been awesome. You can more or less tell roughly what time it is, or how long is it until I have to do something, or how long is it since I did something. If you run through that half an hour exercise, your mind literally stops thinking, and it's fantastic. It's a great practice. If you do that every day, just like you brush your teeth every day, what happens is life becomes easier, because you can go out. Let's say you go out the house and you've had a bad time of it and you're expecting a bad day. Your stress levels out of 10 might be 7 or 8, and it doesn't take much then to hit the ceiling. And that creates maybe some emotions that don't sort of have the best effect on the rest of your day. But if you can do a little exercise in the morning, it might just be 5 minutes. You can go out of the house on a 2 or a 3, and you've got plenty of headroom there. Things can happen and it doesn't bother you. So that's the end of my little mindfulness meditation exercise. I hope that was of some benefit, and I know certainly that it's helped me to survive a very bad, rough period that I would say I went through before I knew about this stuff. And now it's my life, and I enjoy teaching this to as many people as I can. It certainly can change your life if you practice it and stick with it. So I think we can probably open up the floor to any comments now or questions, if anybody's got any questions. Certainly go ahead. We've got Nikki here.
Hello, everyone. I don't know about you, but I feel absolutely wonderful now. Just to give you a little tiny bit of a background, this is the 3rd live session that I have done today in the support role, and it's been just one after another after another. And when I started talking to Russell, I could feel a lot of tension in here, a lot of tension here. I'm usually fairly conscious of my shoulders, but there was tension there as well. And I had this very sort of heavy head. It's not totally gone, because when I'm sitting up in a chair, I can't totally relax because I've got a sciatic nerve problem. However, I am so much better than I was. And the other thing was that I'd come across this naturally, I think, or I might have heard it somewhere, but doing the tension into your feet and then releasing it. I have a problem with both my feet, and I'm more aware of the pain in them at night because everything else has sort of calmed down. And what I have found is that, my natural foot position might be like that, and I found that by sort of twisting it into the most weird shape and then releasing it actually removes the pain. So it's that tension and then releasing is brilliant. And there was one moment there when, how when you're falling asleep and you don't want to, and you do that bit. It wasn't quite as bad as that, but I could feel myself starting to go. So that was wonderful.
Fantastic.
And I did have to say that when I opened my eyes again, I did take a quick look at the time just to make sure that I hadn't missed a call that I should have been doing.
One of the great exercises with mindfulness that I haven't really got time to go into today in full, but if you first of all get into the kind of what I would call the relaxed state, some would call it the meditative state, and then if you have a pain somewhere, this is fantastic for pain reduction. If you have a pain somewhere, get your mind into a relaxed state and then focus on the pain. Literally put all of your attention on the pain in whatever area. It might be a headache or a backache. It could be migraine, and it works fantastically on migraines. And really focus on it, and then use the power of your mind to it's almost like a volume control, and you turn the pain down. And you're in your mind, you almost give yourself a request and say, turn the pain down. But with practice, again, I do this a lot with with the sports clubs I'm involved with, and people who've got fibromyalgia and various other classes that I run. We're literally seeing the results live in front of us, and lots of people say, I just can't believe it. The pain's completely disappeared. And it does take a little bit of practice, but you keep trying it, and it definitely works.
I will certainly be practicing with that for my back, because I do struggle. I use EFT quite a lot to help with it. And it seems to be sort of EFT and ice packs have become my favourite friend. However, you can't always have an ice pack with you. Yeah. So if I can learn how to, as you say, turn that volume down on it, that is going to be quite truthfully life-changing for me, because sometimes I'm in so much pain I don't know what to do with myself. So thank you for that. And I just noticed that we've got a comment here. Just put my glasses on. Yeah. The triple senses exercise really helped me because you have a lot. So it helps to reduce the intrusive thoughts, which was very good. Yeah, I found that too, especially as Andrew came up in the middle of that to say that he was about to go and start mowing the lawn, and then he sort of looked in through the door and went, "Oh, you're in the middle of actually doing the exercise." And I think I nodded to him to acknowledge him, but at that point I knew that the outside world had come back into my mind, so I just concentrated on my breath, the temperature, the rise and fall of my my body and things like that, and it worked. It was brilliant. Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, Nikki, because what happens is, if you are in this kind of ultra relaxed state, if something happens, you have to get out of the building, or you need to be somewhere, you can just literally open your eyes and do it. But what I tend to do is, if I have an appointment, and particularly if I might be tired, we were talking earlier, I'm very busy at the moment, so I kind of feel physically tired with all the rushing around. If I sit there and I know I could possibly fall asleep, I'll just set a gentle timer on my phone. If you do fall asleep, you need something just to gently bring you up. You don't want like something really loud and sudden, just a gentle thing to bring you back out of it. Yeah. But that's great. If you do get disturbed, you can, with practice, you can literally go straight back in. And all you have to do, like the comment there, the triple senses, you literally have to give your mind 2 things to do. But if you can give it 3, that's fantastic. Listen to the sound, feel the temperature, and feel the movement. And it's all around, what is the breath doing to me? And that's all you have to focus on.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I know some people talk about putting breath into the pain or something like that as well. I've heard something like that being mentioned before. Because
some people say breathe into the hands, or breathe into the pain. And it means put your attention on it. Put your attention on the pain as you breathe in.
And I think our breath, bizarrely, is something that we all take it for granted. And we're never really taught how to breathe properly. People talk about breathing exercises and breathing properly and breathing from your diaphragm and or whatever it is, and we're never sort of really taught at an early age what that actually means.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see people who they breathe into the chest up here.
Yeah.
And they're not getting the full benefit, and they're not filling the lungs. So it's so important. We don't. I'll bet most people who watch this haven't realised that the temperature going in is cool and the temperature coming out is warm.
I haven't at all
until it's not there anymore.
Yes. Hadn't thought of that at all. But the moment you said it, I realised it was true. Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah. And it's all free. You know, you can use it anytime. You've always got it. And, you know, why not?
That's right, and I think it's all about finding out using a lot of different tools and techniques, because not everything's going to work for everybody. So finding the ones which work for you, and sometimes you use them, sometimes you don't. I go through phases when I hardly use EFT at all, then something will happen, and I'll go, oh yeah, why don't I try that? And then I'll use it, and then it will become my tool of choice, if you like, my technique of choice for a while, and then something else will take over. But I've got it in my portfolio if and when I need it, which is brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do put a lot of things up on my Facebook page and group, you know, giving lots of different ideas. I mean, we've literally scratched the surface today. You know, this is just the basic stuff. So there are so many different techniques and options with mindfulness that you can develop and use, and eventually it just becomes a way of life. And I love it.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, talking about your Facebook page and things like that, there will be a slide there for the recording with it written down. But if you could tell people how to get in touch with you, please,
sure.
that'd be great.
I've got a fairly unique name, Russell Treasure, and if you search on Facebook or Google, you'll come up with my social media. But my page is literally Facebook, Russell Treasure, and I have a group which we've just started where people can kind of join in and ask questions, and that's called Mindfulness with Russell Treasure. And if anybody watching this wants to join, just send a request. And I'll put you in the group. My website is just russelltreasure.co.uk, and an email, all that contact stuff's on there. And I think Facebook is one of the great things about it is that we can share all of these techniques. People can come on and ask questions. You know, I help to run a men's mental health group locally. And the Facebook group, which is secret, so you know people can't join it, but it helps so many people out. I'm really, really, you know, a big fan of Facebook from that point of view. I know it's got its kind of detractors, and
yes,
but it's worked wonders for a lot of people. And just ask, and I'll get you in there, and then we can have a chat, watch the videos, and we put memes up and tips and things like that. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Russell.